Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today I got a real treat for you. His name is Chris Caro, and he is the Sewer Condition Assessment Section Manager at WSSC Water. Chris, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Real pleasure to be here on the podcast and share a little bit about myself. I'm honored to be invited to speak. Joseph, reached out and invited me on. And again, I was just thrilled to have this opportunity.
For sure, man. For sure. Well, thanks for hopping on. So WSSC Water, what does that stand for? All these acronyms in this industry, man.
Yeah. We as a government agency, and probably most government agencies across the country, love acronyms. Our name is an acronym. So WSSC is Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission. And recently we added on water because people were like, what is WSSC Water, or what is WSSC? They Google us and they weren't sure if it was the right place because there was no mention of water in our title. So they've added the word water maybe 5 or so years ago. Okay. Just a brief history. So we started off as a sanitation company. So actually doing trash pickup and other services like that. And over time, we've kind of shifted into the water space and left sanitation behind. So we no longer do any sanitation. We're just drinking and sewer water.
Wow. Okay. And commission, I've never heard of a commission, at the end of usually it's like, oh, it's the public works department or, engineering firm, but like, what's the commission aspect about it?
So we are a quasi-government agency and we are run by commissioners, right? So we serve Montgomery and Prince George's counties here right outside of Washington, D.C. There are 3 commissioners from each county, and they are really the governing body of our organization. So all of our budget, all contracts, pretty much any key decisions are approved by them before they are then carried out by the staff.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you said suburban, like what's kind of the scope, and not necessarily gallons per day, but just miles of coverage, gallons, whatever. Like give us the scope of what we're working with here.
Yeah, so we've got 1,000 square miles of land area. So we're pretty large. I know we used to tout that we were the 8th largest in the country. I don't know if that number has gone up or down here. I haven't Googled it recently, but we're pretty proud of that. We're definitely the largest here in the Mid-Atlantic area. We have about 11,000 miles of pipeline between sewer and water, about 5,500 each. I'm not a production guy, but I think our plant pushes out about 260 million gallons per day, somewhere around there. And then we have a smaller plant that does, I think, maybe 50 or 60. So we're about 300 million gallons a day of production daily.
Okay. All right. And you're the sewer condition assessment section manager. So give us kind of the what's your job description? We know what it says, but what does it mean? Like what's Chris's, what's under, your, I guess, hands every day? And then give us the day in the life of a random Tuesday for Chris.
Okay. So as a section manager, right, we're divided into departments, divisions, and then sections, right? So I'm under the Water Wastewater Systems Assessment Division, and that division has 5 sections, and I manage one of those 5 sections. My section in particular is responsible for condition assessment of our buried sewer infrastructure. So we have about 8 or 9 different programs that perform those activities. So we have a CCTV program, we have a flow monitoring program, we have an I&I program, we have what we call a performance assessment program. So how is the system actually performing? We have a trunk walk program, which is going to be a larger diameter sewer mains. We have our large diameter program, the trunk walk is actually the manhole inspection. The large diameter is the large sewer main inspection. We have an asset armoring program. So that's going to be for any assets that either cross or run along a streamline. We have a chemical root control program. And I might be missing one or two there. There are quite a few. So my job as the manager is essentially to either facilitate resources or give guidance and direction to the project managers whenever they're facing some difficult decision points or just plain old stuck on something. So for example, yesterday was Tuesday, and I'm a in the present kind of guy. So Tuesday was like a long time ago for me now. So now I got to think back, what did I do yesterday? Okay, so we're coming up now on the end of our fiscal year. And with that comes assessments of our budget, right? The budgets are equated to work performed. So if you're under budget, you've, maybe underperformed. So I'm looking at some of the programs and looking at who has a big variance, who's not going to spend all their budget for the fiscal year, and I'm laying out plans for the team to help pick up that spending and pick up the production before we close out the fiscal year here in the end of June. So talk to the large diameter program, and I said, hey, listen, we got to get out there. We got to do more CCTV. Let's try to do about 2.5 to 3 miles between now and the end of June. That should net us maybe about $300K and close that gap on the $1 million that we have to spend. Spoke with the consultants as well, laid out expectations, said, hey, if you come across any roadblocks, please let us know as soon as you can so we can pivot and maybe, come up with another plan. So that's kind of what I spent my day yesterday doing, was going over the budget. And again, some plans to pick up the performance.
Okay, well, sounds like a lot of chess happening and a strategy happening.
Sure.
Give us kind of or not necessarily the career path, but how you got into the position you're in. Give us the rundown of pretty much when you graduated from high school to what brought you here today.
Yeah, I love sharing my story. It's, I think, unique and it's unorthodox. So I grew up in Montgomery County. Went to all my school there, elementary, middle, high school. From there, after high school, I went to Montgomery College, which is a junior college here locally, and went there for a couple years. And after junior college, most of the kids want to go to Maryland, University of Maryland. That's the big school here locally. So that was also kind of my dream. Other than it just being the big name school, I had no other real reason. So I'm, applying there and applying to other programs, and I get accepted, which is great. But they want to put me, since I didn't start off there as a freshman, they wanted to put me in this, like, I don't know what to call it, but basically it's for whoever didn't start as a freshman. You do one semester, get acclimated to campus, and we kind of bring you on and all that good stuff. Then I also got into Morgan State University's engineering school, and I could start right away in the engineering program with no additional semester of fluff, as I'll call it. So I said, you know what, time is of the essence. I don't want to spend an additional semester in school. I want to go with Morgan State. So I went to Morgan State. I loved it. I moved to Baltimore. I had lived my entire life pretty much in Montgomery County. So it's, even though it's not that far, a whole new world, much bigger city. So all the things that come with that. Get to, start school and enjoying it. I'm in my environmental engineering class, and the professor asked, what are the local water utility companies in the region? And I was like, you got me beat there. I have no idea. So I, grew up in Montgomery County my whole life. I never paid a water bill. Second thought to me.
Right? Who knows that? Yeah.
Who knows? So some of the students though were like, hey, DC Water and WSSC and Baltimore City Department of Public Works and Howard County Bureau of Utilities. I'm like, geez, man, I've been under a rock. All the guys know all the answers, and I don't. So the professor says, great job, guys. Now, the reason why I asked was because these organizations have internships every summer that go unfilled because students like Chris don't know those opportunities. So I said, if you don't have anything planned, you're not doing any research, you're not, doing anything really fulfilling, I suggest that you apply for those internships, and, you never know what could happen. So I said, hey, I'm not doing anything this summer. Why not? So I went in, applied for all of them. and I get called from WSSC. So mind you, I know nothing about water industry at all. Go to the interview. As an intern, it wasn't really technical, so they were just more gauging interest and things like that. I was fortunate enough to be selected, so I came in that summer. That's 2012, by the way. That was I kind of had some struggles in Montgomery College. I'll say that. So I fell a little behind. I ended up graduating in a winter semester, which traditionally people graduate in the spring. So I was, one late or whatever. So
You're
this
having
was
fun, man. We can't blame you. Come on,
too
man.
much fun.
That's not a struggle, man. It's a social struggle.
Too much fun. So this was the summer between that last spring semester and the fall when I ended up graduating. So I came in and I just fell in love with the industry right away. So the environment that I was in here at WSSC, the people that kind of just help cultivate and foster my growth really as a young student engineer at that point really captivated me and said, I said to myself, this is where I want to be. Like, I couldn't envision working anywhere else. Like, everyone was just so welcoming, again, so open to explaining things to me and, just kind of slow walking it until I really got a good grasp and understanding. So had the internship, had a great time, had to go back to school, right? So I finished school. Everything went well. At that point, unfortunately, here at the organization, there were no true entry-level positions. So even entry-level needed 1 year of experience. So I couldn't, right, exactly. So the manager, though, did try to kind of finesse, I was an intern, but it still didn't quite work out. So I ended up going to work for a private company for about a year and some change. We were doing condition assessment of pavement. Pretty cool job, but it was just
Unrelated.
Job.
Yeah.
I had, they offered me a job, and it was the first one, so I said, "Why not? I'll take it."
Been there.
But right, so it was great though. I traveled the country at that job, got to visit a lot of new areas. Really liked it, but it wasn't what I had the passion and the drive for. So as soon as I got my 1 year of experience, where I was at. So I applied at the first opportunity that I saw, and I came back to WSSC. Again, like the first opening that I found. So that was in 2014. I think July of 2014. And started out, I took off running. I had already pretty good background from the internship. So a lot of the kind of fundamentals I had and some of the systems that we use, I was familiar with. So I was really able to get a head start with my career. And I think it took me a little over a year. I got promoted to, so I started off as an associate project manager, got promoted to project manager shortly thereafter. And I love that too. I was getting more responsibility, bigger projects. Now we're talking about multi-million-dollar programs that I'm overseeing. I'm still pretty young. I'm, my late 20s at that point. All of the other PMs were, I just say older, so I was the young kid and I could show them tricks on Excel and, stuff like that. So it came to a point though where I had spent about 3 years as a project manager. Things started to get a little stagnant. The way that we're organized, it's difficult. Difficult to get exposure outside of whatever your responsibilities are. So I knew everything about sewer from beginning to end, but unfortunately, I didn't know anything about the water side of things. I didn't know anything about production or treatment. So I took a leap of faith and I actually left WSSC. Just for a little bit, so I went to a private firm again, and there I was able to work on, all different types of utility projects. So I worked on gas mains, water mains, of course, sewer mains. That was kind of my specialty at that point. I worked on the construction of a storage facility, or water storage facility. So I really got, a broader scope of engineering, the water industry. And that gave me the opportunity to come back to WSSC, this time on the water side. So I'm in the same group or division that I'm in now, but I was working on water projects. So we were doing condition assessment of our PCCP, which is pre-stress concrete cylindrical pipe. That's really our large transmission mains for drinking water. And then I started up our metallic mains program, which we didn't have and desperately needed. So from ground zero, I started up that program, and I did that for about 3 years, I think 3.5 years. And about 2 years ago, I was promoted to my current position, sewer condition assessment section manager. So that's kind of a brief run through of the journey here from college to where I currently stand.
Yeah, it's like those toxic relationships. You left, came back, left, came back.
Yeah, yeah, but it's one of those things where to grow, I had to do it. If I could have stayed, I would have loved to have stayed. But when you're in that position, it's like I knew nothing about water, so I could not pursue a position, in the water side of things. So I'm humbled again to have an opportunity to return, and I don't think I'll leave again. I'll say
for sure, for sure. You talked about that love, and I want you to offer advice or even some tips of, that feeling you felt from that internship, or even when you first started, like, after your internship, that love that you got, the people answering the questions, the good energy you got. Like, I don't hear that often when people are like, are hired on or brought on. What would you say is something that was fostered within WSSC that other agencies, utilities, cities can, develop internally that can make somebody younger who doesn't even know about the industry that much, it can feel that way?
So I would say the morale, of course, people who want to be there. So here at WCC, I mean, we've had some long tenured staff. So, some of the staff who I worked with during my internship had been here 20 years, 25 years. So they had that foundation of what it took to be successful. And then they're also have a vested interest in bringing on younger talent because, they're going to leave one day and they want to make sure that the organization is left in good hands. So between that and I think just the personalities or being able to connect with them outside of work, right? So it's one thing to explain to someone in a cold manner of, hey, this is the procedure, follow it, do it. But to really embrace someone with warmth and have a true interest in seeing them grasp it and seeing them even move past, like, for example, some of the people who I was an intern with are now their boss, right? So that dynamic of watching me start under, catch up to them, and then surpass them. But even through all that matriculation, for me, it's still been the same wanting to help. If I go to them, it's not like, this guy, he thinks he's a hot shot now, it's still the same openness to, hey, whatever you need, whatever it takes to be successful. And I think that's the key word, really, is success. If you really want to be successful, you need a team that's gonna be unselfish enough to root for, someone who is their competition in a sense.
Gotcha. The grade came out from, I think it was one of the engineering firms or the Engineering Association, about America's, underground infrastructure. And I think it was like a D or something. And you're in condition assessment. So you're the person to ask about the condition. And of course you can't speak to the whole of US, but let's just talk about your backyard, or WSSC's footprint. What would you grade the condition? And then also, and this isn't a bash fest, but like, what would you say is some of the things that can flip that upside down in the next 2 to 5 years? Besides money, can't say money.
Right. So that's a challenging question, right? So the systems were built in a time, I know I can't say money. I'm going to try my hardest not to bring up money, but in a time where it was needed, right? Most of our system was built between the 60s and maybe late 50s and late 70s. You need potable water. You need sewer services, right, to be able to grow communities, to develop, and really commerce is on our backs, right? You need clean water for restaurants, for medical facilities. So that drive was there. Now, unfortunately, once they were built, that drive went away. And although those systems are robust, they're resilient, and they've way overperformed what they were initially intended for, that investment, I'm not going to say money, but investment hasn't really came back to say, hey, listen, they're there now, but they're deteriorating quickly. And if we don't invest in them in the next 2 to 5 years, we could be faced with an unsurmountable bill, I'm gonna say money, bill to keep them running. So
Sure.
From to answer your question, it depends how you want to look at it, right? So if you want to say compare it to a new system, yeah, it's not the best. I would maybe a C at best, right? D plus, right on the lines
Okay.
of that report that you saw. However, is it serving its purpose, right?
Yeah.
So now, as far as serving its purpose, I would grade it pretty high. I mean, we're on the lower end of SSOs. Water main breaks are a whole other beast. We're trying to get that under control as much as we can. But as far as performance, we give us a solid B. I
Okay.
would say we do pretty well. And for the second part, the new big wave in the industry is AI. And I
Yeah.
know people think of AI as robots or Chat GPT
Yeah.
or but there's a really big push right now in the water and sewer industry where AI is being developed to really drive our decisions.
Mm.
So, for example, last month we had I think about 10. It's a little bit under, but I'll just say 10 SSOs, right? We're currently working with consultants who are developing algorithms that are going to tell us, hey, pipe A is projected to have an SSO between quarter 1 and quarter 2 of 2025. So it's in your best
Wow.
interest to go out there and clean, or it's usually clean because it goes off of the rate at which solids build up in the pipe.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
it's in your best interest to go out there and clean that pipe before you have an SSO. We're also working with another one where they're giving us predictions on breaks.
Okay.
So, hey, this pipe is probably going to break between 2025 and 2028. Excuse me. Usually planned construction is a lot cheaper than emergency
Yeah. Yeah.
construction.
Yeah.
So again, in a money savings effort, it's in your best interest to go out and replace that pipe in that window, or you could face a much higher risk of that pipe
Sure.
failing.
Sure. Okay. Interesting technology. You know, I've heard about some of the stuff like that, but I'd be eager to talk to you about 2 years and see if it's, if that AI is pretty spot on. But no, I like that. You're a sewer condition assessment section manager. What keeps Chris Cotto up at night in regards to, sewer condition assessments?
A different nightmare every night. So, as I said earlier in the interview, right now it's crunch time for us as far as the end of the fiscal year. Making sure that the performance is up to the expectations, that KPIs are being met, and that we're getting the production that we expect out of our different programs. So, try to strategize and find ways to just eke out just another half a mile or a couple more inspections is what's keeping me up at night.
Okay.
I also am. I haven't touched on this. I have several roles here at the organization. I'm also part of our meter infrastructure replacement program, MERP. That's the acronym for you there. MIRP, and man, it's been a beast. So we have a really antiquated um, metering system, meter collection, and just the meters themselves. We still have people going physically door to door collecting
No
meter
way.
reads. Yeah,
Wow.
and we have 500,000 customers. So
Yeah.
they're on a quarterly route, but I heard a fact last week that the meter readers walk an average of like 10 miles a day, something crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's daunting work to say the least. So there are several obstacles that we're trying to overcome in regards to upgrading that system. Right now, we're evaluating different technologies. What's the best fit for us? Not only physical meters, but also integrating that data into our IT systems. So between those two, on any given day, I don't know which one's going to pop up.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about the aging infrastructure. I like to focus on the aging workforce of our industry. Those who are retiring in the next 2 to 5 years, they're going to take all that institutionalized knowledge with them and leave. What have you seen? It could be at WSSC or even, with your colleagues in the surrounding areas. What have you seen that's worked in regards to taking the knowledge that they have and giving it to the new generation and making sure those who come into the industry are set up for success?
Yeah, so you try your best to have a continuity with the team. You try your best to bring on talent. One big thing that I've seen is, especially in our space, it's difficult to retain talent, right? So we're a public organization. There are some luxuries that the private side offers people that, I'm not mad at them for taking it, but for that reason, it's difficult to have someone be really a tenured staff member, 5, 10, 15 years. So us in our group, we have that same dynamic. We have a lot of staff on the later side of their careers looking to retire in the next 2 to 5 years. And then a lot of staff, not necessarily starting out, but, kind of in the early stages of the career. So we here do a lot of brain dumps, as we'll call them. So just kind of brainstorming sessions and exchanging information. Now, I touched on AI a second ago. AI is great at capturing notes, recording sessions so that you can have some documentation to go back to and say, oh, what did you say, that meeting? Okay, that's right. Let me go back and, take a look at the notes. Because really that's all you have is that information. Like we had a situation a couple weeks ago where one of our communities had low pressure. So we're all scrambling, trying to see, hey, what valve is closed? Is there a break somewhere in the system? Is there a hydrant open? Why isn't the system holding pressure the way it should? And it took, one of the more seasoned staff to say, hey, there's a division valve on, I can't remember across.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Why don't you check that out? And, lo and behold,
Nobody else knew that. Yeah.
and no one else knew that. Now we work collaboratively. So there were, 10, 15 people as part of that effort. Hopefully one of those 10 or 15 are here in 20 years. So if it ever happens again, right? Exactly. They're here to say, hey, 15 years ago, we had a similar issue. Let's check it out.
Sure.
But documentation, creating really thorough SOPs and, making those live documents is what really is critical as well, because you create a SOP today, you put it on the shelf, things change tomorrow, right? And now that SOP is unfortunately outdated or no longer relevant. So going back to them every several years or, maybe every year and a half or so. So right now we have an initiative to do exactly that, right? Create a task force, for lack of a better term, who's constantly revising and visiting those SOPs to ensure that they are functional.
Sure. No, I like that. Thanks for answering that. All right, let's get to the rest of these questions. I need a story from Chris when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Right. So this was probably, I think, my biggest mistake so far, and I'll knock on wood, hopefully the biggest ever. So we're doing an inspection on a 33. It increases in diameter as the pipe goes down the alignment main, and this is down at the tip of our service area. So there's no redundancy in this area, and that pipe flows into a elevated tank. Right, I'm just trying to lay out kind of the scenario for you. So the pipe flows into an elevated tank, which fills up and then serves that community around it. The pipe has never been inspected. There's no redundancy. So if you take it out of service, you take the customers out of water, or whenever the tank runs out, the customers are out of water. So you have, I think it was about a 5-hour window to do whatever you need to do. So we go out, we're out there, like a week or so before, doing flow test, making sure that the tool can move at the required speed to collect the information. Everything works out well. All right, great. Flow test checked. We're going to come on next week and do the test. So the flow test was good, but it was barely cutting it, right? So we're like, well, let's, what can we do to pick up the velocity? So, we did a little desktop analysis. Well, let's, close off here and open there. And we go out the day of the inspection, and maybe an hour and a half into it, we get a call. Hey, we've got a break over here.
Oh no.
All right, let's isolate that break. Another hour later, hey, we've got another break over here. So I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to freak out. I'm panicking, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I got customers out of water. My inspection now, our adjustments have caused these issues. So they're like, well, we think we're good. We don't expect any more breaks. But so I was, stuck with the position of, okay, we've invested a lot, right? Because it's a lot of prep. We have the consultant on site. We've got people from all over the country, literally here, who've flown in to perform the inspection. We've invested a lot to do it. So do I continue and not sink this cost, or do I pull out and say, hey, I'm not going to take any more risk. I don't want to, cause any more damage. Let's just go back and regroup. So ultimately, for me, I take being a public servant to heart. So I'm always going to do what's in the best interest of the community. So I was like, I cannot risk, not even close to another break, right? Not even a cracker or anything that's going to jeopardize our customer service. So as much as we put into this, we're unfortunately going to have to pull back, demobilize, and regroup, and come back at a later date. So that was kind of solved, but now it's I have to answer to people, right? So and this is a thing where there are many groups, maybe 20 or 30 different people involved. So my first thing was, I need to talk to my boss before he gets the story from somebody else, right? So I get back in the car and I call him immediately, and I'm kind of not really panicking, but I am concerned, like, hey man, we're really gonna get it. It might get written up, or some kind of action taken against me for the damage that I caused. But he was surprisingly, really understanding. He said, hey, listen, this is part of the business. You plan as much as you can. You did what you thought was best. Unfortunately, the result wasn't what you expected, but we have to take, risk at some point, right? Everything that we do comes at some level of risk. So you did the right thing. You weren't concerned about the bottom line or wasting money, quote unquote. You put the customers first, and so I'm happy with how you handled the situation. So I was, like, wow, I was not expecting that. I was relieved to hear that he took it in that way, that he knew that it was all in good intention. But yeah, that was, to this day, my worst fiasco. And like I said, I hope to not top that ever.
Yeah, no, and the reason why I asked that question is because somebody else is in your position right now, and they're thinking, should I, CYA, should I cover my own butt, or should I take care of the customer, the city constituent? And you made the decision, and obviously we could take something from how your boss handled it, how he didn't say, oh, you're an idiot, you should have did this, you should have called me, ahead of time, and he handled it like I feel like people should. So there's a couple things to take from that. So thanks for answering that way. All right. So how does Chris continue to upskill? What do you do personally and professionally to keep putting new information in your brain?
Yeah. So, I've entered this space of management here. I still feel like I'm a relatively new manager, at least managing people, right? So you manage work or manage people, those two distinctions. And I'm a people person. So, I get along well, I'm friendly, and never had issues. But when you're in management, you have to sometimes make tough decisions, tougher than whether you CYA or you move forward with a project. Personnel decisions, and how do you maneuver through those, and how do you approach certain situations, certain topics. So one of the big drives for me since I've entered the management space is really filling myself with that knowledge, right? So I know you didn't say it the way it was in the question there, but the question was, what do I do to improve myself? So really is getting knowledge. So I read as much as I can. So I try to read at least one book a quarter. And it's usually either management books or self-improvement books, right?
Mhm.
And they do really help, at least me. They help me a lot. I know a lot of times you got to get caught in the mundane periods of work, and you kind of lose some enthusiasm and some of that drive for what you're doing. And then I read a chapter in the book, and it kind of fills me
Mhm.
back up. Like what,
Yep.
the team counting on me. I should be the one setting the standard. I'm the one setting the expectations, giving me the courage to sometimes have those difficult decisions, when it comes to reprimanding someone or giving discipline, to staff. So the books have really helped me again to just stay focused, showing me different approaches, right? Because everyone has a different management style. So different approaches, knowing that really you need a management style for every member of your team because
Yeah.
you all need to be approached a different way. So
Yeah.
you can't just have, this is the way I am, take it or leave it. You have to really meet people where they are. And I think I've been pretty successful at that. My team, I love them. They do a lot of work that is hard work. It's, labor intensive work. So having their commitment, means a lot to me. So I want to, in return, give them the best that I can as a manager.
Sure. Sure. Okay. What would you say is the biggest misconception about your position? Let's say we asked your wife's best friend, like, what does Chris do all day? What does he do for the community? What would she
Right.
get totally wrong in answering that question?
She would probably say I'm on the phone all day. Yeah, I don't do anything but talk on the phone. Well, at least now, it's Teams or
Yeah.
virtual meetings. But she'll say that I'm just in meetings all day and I'm just talking about nothing all day. But really, at least here internally, the biggest misconception is that we know everything, right? So we are technically the owners of the system, right? So people call us, hey, pipe such and such. When was it lined? No, I mean, can I get a minute to look it up? I don't know. Or hey, what's the condition of this pipe? Or we can't find this manhole. Do you know where it is? And mind you, we have 5,000 miles. I think we have 170,000 different manholes. So it's like, can I get a second? I'll have one of my guys go out. If it's buried, we can get a metal detector and find it. But yeah, here organizationally, people feel like we are the oracle. We have all the answers, and unfortunately, that's not the case. I happy to have people believe that, and kind of honored. But that to me is one of the more frustrating things, where it's like you're gonna have to give me a minute. Okay, I don't know off the top of my head.
Interesting. Interesting. Let's say your commissioner put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of, let's say, the footprint of WSSC. What ask of your community in regards to wastewater, water,
Mhm.
sewer conditions? Like, what
Yeah,
ask of the community would you want from this from on the billboard?
yeah. So only flush the three P's. I don't know if you ever heard this before. So that's going to be pee, poop, and paper. I don't know if you got to bleep out poop, or I said it again. But I don't know if you got to bleep that out. But the system is designed to handle those three elements.
Mhm.
Um, People treat, and your garbage disposal is part of the system as well. So even though it's in your sink and not in your
Yeah,
bathroom,
yeah,
please be cognizant of the things that you put down your drain. But yeah, the things that we see in the system, you would not believe. I mean, we've pulled out um, a wad of flushable wipes that was 1,800 pounds.
yeah.
1,800 pounds. That's no exaggeration.
Was that the size of
1,800.
a mattress almost? I mean,
I mean, it was like I think 9 feet tall, and it was kind of like a teardrop shape because
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they got pushed towards the front, but it was like a teardrop shape, and it was
yeah.
like 9 feet tall and like 4 feet round. And we go and say, "Have you been flushing wipes?" Oh, well, every
No.
day, baby, and we thought the word it said flushable. Yeah, no, it is flushable, but it does not break down in the
Yeah.
system. So please, put it in the bag with the diaper and dispose of it in the trash. But that's our biggest thing. Grease is another big obstacle for us where, of course, restaurant areas and things like that, but even in customer residential areas, grease is a huge issue, huge
Yeah.
issue. A lot of backups due to grease. So if the customers could collaborate with us on that, it would make all of our lives easier for sure.
All right, Chris. I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. And then I want you to give a word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow sewer condition assessment managers across the country.
Yeah, so I like to start off as far as mentors with Daryl Lipscomb. So he was the guy who gave me my first opportunity as an intern. So again, I came in as a kid with zero knowledge, zero background in terms of the sewer industry. I don't know what he saw in me, but I appreciate it. It's literally changed my life. The opportunities that I've been given since then, all the things that I've learned. He's also helped, instill in me a lot of information, a lot of, I'm at lost for words now, but just a lot of that. This is the way, a professional behaves. This is the way that you approach situations. You don't run away from the difficult task and things like that. So he was my work. He retired a few years back. He was my work dad while he was here, and really any situation, and even personal, I'd go to him and say, hey, listen, at this position, and I really don't know which way to go. What's your recommendation? And of course, he'd say, hey, listen, it's your decision, but this is what I would do, or this is what I suggest. But ultimately, you have to do what you think is best for you. Then secondly, the boss that I mentioned earlier, Glenn Diaz, who's now our director of public works here at WSSC. So he, again, has been someone who's really invested in me and given me opportunities that I think I deserved them, but they were definitely big shoes to fill, right? So he's really taken me under his wing, and at different times he'll call me and say, hey, did a great job, the way you handled this meeting or the way you handled the situation. And at the same time, he'll call me and say, hey, listen, you really should have did it this way. I know there were good intentions behind your words or your actions, but the way you really want to handle that is this way. You don't want to expose yourself too much in certain times, or you don't want to play your hand a certain way. So I really appreciate all of the mentorship that he's given me, and it's all been organic, right? So it's just again, me coming to him coming to me. It's nothing that feels forced. So appreciate him big time for that. And then lastly, Wayne Morse. So he also took me under his wing as an intern. We're great friends to this day. We avid cyclists together now, so we ride a lot of bikes. But he's really showed me really how to have that passion and dedication, because I don't know anyone as passionate or as dedicated as him. So, have that, 100% commitment. And then also, more than anything, set high standards for myself. So I know a lot of times I sometimes kind of doubt myself, or think I don't have the capability to do certain things. And he said, man, listen, you're one of the best. You've got it. You're going to do it. And even if you don't succeed, you know what? You went out trying. So he's always motivating me to push the envelope, push my limits, and keep growing.
Okay. Give a word of inspiration and motivation to those in the trenches right now. They're fighting the same battles you're fighting. What do you say?
Yeah, it's an uphill battle both ways. There's definitely no rest at all in this industry. But what I would say is, if no one's told you, I appreciate the work you do. This is definitely thankless work. A lot of times we go in communities and we're faced with opposition when we're just there trying to be, a help or alleviate people's issues. But, we have some kind of stigma as a water industry that, that's not the case. So thank you for the work that you do, not only your communities, but the environment. Thanks you for what you do. We truly are protecting the environment and making our communities places that we can enjoy, places that are safe to go to, not only odor, but waste, things like that. So keep pushing. Although you might never hear a thank you, keep doing what you do because it is truly appreciated.
Sure. All right, Chris. Let's say I'm coming to town and I text you ahead of time. Where can I go to get the best burger in your district or in your area? Where am I going?
Listen, I live in Baltimore, right? So this is not really a burger town. We're a seafood place, right? I My favorite burger place is Five Guys, which is a chain.
We don't do chains around here, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
and that's exactly what I assumed. But unfortunately, that's what I got for you. But if you want to get some crabs,
Okay.
some seafood, right? I'm your man for that. But the burgers, maybe in DC, I don't know, maybe DC people have a good burger spot. But yeah, I go to Five Guys. I mean, I think they're good.
Where's the seafood spot? If I was looking for some seafood, where are you sending me?
So we have a phenomenal downtown area. The Inner Harbor is kind of, the go-to place, right? So we've got the Rusty Scupper, which and the restaurant is like a lighthouse style. So that's really cool. We have Nick's Seafood, which is also really cool because um in the summer it's outdoors and it's like pretty much a beach. They're right on the water as well, but it's all sand. So wear the appropriate
Okay.
footwear or the
Yeah.
appropriate footwear. You don't want to track a bunch of sand back home. But and then the last one I'll say Mo Seafood, and theirs is also cool because it's a boat, right? I don't know if it was a real boat at one point or if they just
Yeah.
made it look like a boat, but the restaurant is a boat, and they have some phenomenal seafood as well.
Okay. Good stuff. We got some options there. All right, Chris, thanks for hopping on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information, knowledge, and also sharing your story. To all the listeners out there, share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Chris, any final words before we get out of here?
No, thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing your space with me. Again, this was, kind of just an organic connection. I loved the time here with you. The questions were great. I love being able to share my story and again, my enthusiasm. Hopefully that one person can just catch on, and that's all I would want.
For sure. Chris, well, thanks for hopping on the podcast. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in.